Hi everyone, today I'm going to tell you about the 5 best places to buy tarot books and tarot decks in London. The 4 most important shops are all in the West End, so if you put aside, say, 2 hours, you could easily see all of them in one go. The 5th one is in Chelsea and you could see it in the same day. It's just a short bus ride away. It does seem that during the past few years, maybe because of the pandemic, a couple of the main esoteric places in London have closed down. There was a lovely place called Mysteries, and I'm devastated to see it's no longer there. I also Googled up a place called Buddha on a Bicycle, but that has also gone. So there would have been more, but these are the ones that survive. I started my tour of the tarot shops in West London in Chelsea. I got off the bus in the King's Road and I went to see a shop called Wilde Ones. Now, Wilde Ones is a rather fabulous place. It's been here for 32 years, and even before then it existed in a different premises in London. The shop, I have to say, reminds me of the 70s, and yes, I can remember the 70s more or less. It doesn't quite smell like the 70s, but it looks like them. It's quite a small space, even though it does have a basement, and it's ram-packed with goodies. Like the Astrology Shop, it's a bit of a gift shop, I would say. It's got a lot of trinkets. The tarot stuff is at the back. They've got a nice little selection of decks, and they do have a selection of books. I think one quickly gets distracted by the rather magnificent jewellery and paraphernalia in the shop, and an amazing selection of crystal balls and very nice staff, and it's just a complete pleasure to be here. It's all about atmosphere. It's clearly owned by cultured, clever, witty people, and there's the feeling that you're not quite sure what you're going to see round the next corner. In that respect, it reminds me of somewhere like Kensington Market in the 70s and 80s. Let's call a spade a spade. There's a hippie vibe here, isn't there? So I would say it's not exactly a tarot destination in itself, but if you're in Chelsea, if you're in the King's Road, you'd be crazy not to pop in and have a look round. After Wilde Ones, I hopped on another bus and took myself right into the West End. So, walking up Tottenham Court Road, we turn right into Store Street, and then we're walking into this rather magical and historical area that brings you towards the British Museum. On our right is TREADWELL'S, an amazing shop. It's been here in its current location apparently for the past 20 years or so, but funnily enough, I only recently discovered it. And when I did, I was rather overwhelmed by the magnificence of the place. It all feels very rich, very glorious, and very valuable. The selection of tarot cards is a little bit less than Watkins and Atlantis, but everything's very well curated. It's a very good selection of books, and in their glass cases they have some out-of-print decks and some very old and venerable and very valuable books. They've got some real treasures here. The staff are absolutely lovely. They've got a gorgeous little tarot reading room at the back. I went in and I met Rob, one of their readers who reads on Sundays and Mondays. And it gets better. I was privileged to be allowed to go downstairs and see Pamela Colman-Smith's fireplace. Now, this isn't just a shrine. It's not just an installation. It really is her fireplace. Somehow it was rescued from her last house down in Cornwall, and it was bought by the proprietor of TREADWELL'S, and it was taken back up to London, and here it is. And now it is a shrine in its own right. I think TREADWELL'S unique selling position is that it feels very classy. It feels like somehow you're stepping backwards in time and you're connecting very strongly with a tradition of esoteric thought and witchcraft. And the atmosphere here is quite intense. It's quite magical. There's something timeless about the interior of the shop. And I don't mean that it feels like a museum. It doesn't. Everything feels very new and contemporary and sparkly and gorgeous. So it's like you're not quite sure what century you're in, whether you're in the present or the past. I highly recommend a visit to this highly unusual place. From Treadwell's, it's really just a 5-minute walk to our next destination, the Atlantis Bookshop. You walk through Bloomsbury and past the British Museum, and it's a real pleasure to be in this rather cultured, architecturally splendid part of London. The Atlantis Bookshop is one of my great favourites. There was a while when I would just go to Atlantis and Watkins every time I came to London. It's one of the smaller shops in our tour. It's just one room, there's no downstairs. New Year will be a big shindig at our house. New Year's out. What about you? They have a good selection of tarot decks and oracle decks and a good selection of books. I would say they can't really compete with Watkins in terms of tarot decks, but their selection of books is really good. It might even be slightly bigger than the Watkins selection. The people in this shop really know their stuff. You can talk to them about tarot writers and magicians and things. You get the feeling that they have been connected to magical circles in London for many generations. It's a family business. There's clearly a magic slant in this shop. That's their strong point. That's their specialist subject. Watkins is more of a sort of like an intellectual powerhouse. It's almost like a university. But there's something very passionate and very authentic about Atlantis. I feel it's the sort of place where you might chance upon the perfect tarot deck or the perfect book. There's a strong energy in the shop. From the Atlantis Bookshop, you just walk a couple of blocks south and you get to Neal Street in Covent Garden, which is where you will find the Astrology Bookshop. Now, this really is a venerable old London institution. It's been there for a long time. It's best to find it when it's not crowded, because Covent Garden is quite full of people most of the time, and the shop can get a little bit full. You want to go there on a quiet day when you can maybe talk to the lovely staff and the lovely owner. Of the shops I'm visiting today, the Astrology Bookshop is perhaps the one which most specialises in paraphernalia. It's quite a good gift shop, I think. There's candles, there's loads of crystals, there's little trinket dishes, there's dream catchers. There's a big selection of books, and the tarot books you will find kind of hidden away on the bottom shelf to the right in the corner of the shop. But you know, it's always an interesting selection of books. And in this corner you will find a lovely big glass case with a big display of tarot decks. So yeah, the Astrology Bookshop, it's a really fun place to go to. If you're in Covent Garden and if you're in the mood for shopping, then you know it's an absolute no-brainer. You have to nip in. From the Astrology Bookshop, it's another 5 or 10 minute walk down to Watkins. And on this occasion, I broke my journey by nipping into Foyles for a spot of lunch. Now, the thing is, you can go to Foyles, which is the flagship bookstore of the United Kingdom, and you can look for esoteric books, and actually the choice will be pretty poor because, you know, the atmosphere in Foyles is we're all very sensible, we're all very rational and up to date and modern and basically atheistic, and we don't care about all that spooky stuff. So, you know, there's a almost nothing about tarot and almost nothing about anything spiritual of any interest. And you walk down the road and you get to Watkins and you breathe a sigh of relief and you think to yourself, why did I bother to go to Foyles at all? So here we are in Watkins, and as you can see, it really is a massive centre of esoteric books. It's on 2 floors. The shiny new stuff, the hot off the press stuff with bright colourful covers is all on the top floor, with the trinkets and the tarot cards. And then downstairs you have shelves and shelves and shelves of stuff. The selection of tarot cards is truly huge. You can't open all the decks and look inside. And frankly, you know, when I buy a tarot deck, I usually will research on YouTube beforehand. I'll watch tarot channels like mine and I'll look at flip throughs and I'll just see if I like the deck anyway. But it's nice to be in Watkins and see all the decks laid out before your eyes in physical form, and you can open some of them and you can look inside. I have bought second-hand decks in Watkins, but you kind of have to speak to the management and you have to ask them to lift up a little curtain and show you into this sort of forbidden hidden section where a few second-hand decks are. Yeah, that's not the main point of Watkins. It's a big place and there's quite a lot of people working there. There's quite a lot of people who read tarot there, who come and go, who have their own afternoons. And what I like about it is that every time I go there, I seem to talk to different staff members. It seems to be quite a big crowd. And I meet new people there every time who work there, and I have different conversations. So yeah, they do have a big selection of tarot books, comparable to the Atlantis selection. And what's interesting is that it's differently curated. There's a different slant. There's a different person buying the books. I think the Atlantis books are maybe slightly more advanced. I think in Watkins there are more books for beginners and intermediate level. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Watkins Books. No visit to London should be complete without it. I hope that was helpful. As a little PS, I have another tip for lunch. If you don't fancy going to the cafe at Foyles, or depending on your itinerary, you can nip into the Hare Krishna cafe in Soho Street. It's called Govinda's. It's really good. I go there quite a lot. You can get a little thali plate for $7.95 or something like that. It's been there for years and years, and it's a real London experience. So that was my guide to the main shops for buying tarot decks and tarot books in London. I'll be back next week with more tarot ideas. If you have any helpful tips for me and for the other viewers, just pop them in the comments below, and I'll see you next week. Bye.